Hey, aloha folks, and welcome to the Klipper Golf Course. You know, the last time we were talking about drivers, one of the last times anyways, and we're talking about we're talking about how to choose a driver, right? How to select the best driver for you. And then in the middle of all of that, we started talking a little bit about adjusting the driver to your benefit. And so I thought today we'd kind of do a demonstration on that. I think most of you got it, and probably even some of you know it, but in case, you know, some of you may not, and if there are a few people that don't know about this, then we want to share it with you. Okay, so adjusting a driver. Now, most of the drivers today have at least one adjustment on it, and that's the neck adjustment here, right? And with this, we know that we can change the loft of the club. Okay, and then some other drivers have a movable piece on the head somewhere, and it's usually to adjust what they call the bias of the club, how the club wants to either close or open at the point of impact. And that would be this adjustment here. And then Kendrick, if you can zoom in here, you see how it says draw here and fade here. Okay, so if you move this tungsten, as you see, tungsten, if you move the tungsten, which is heavier in weight than the steel or the titanium, you move it over here, it's going to make the club face want to close more than stay square. If you go this way, it's going to make it want to open more than stay square. So you're creating a draw bias or a fade bias. All right? Okay, so now, what else can we do here? We talked about that last time. Well, guess what? If we were to adjust this, so we loosen the screw and dislodge the shaft from the club, right? On this particular golf club, we noticed that it can go up a degree or up a degree and a half, or sorry, down, or we can go up a degree or up a degree and a half. But what's really interesting, most of these one sleeve style, usually there's two different types. You've got the single sleeve, and then you've got the cogs. So you got one thing that moves here and another thing that moves on top of there. But this particular type, if you go completely over to the other side, they have the flat settings, and they don't move quite as much. You can go 1 degree weaker in the flat position and 1 degree stronger in the flat position. But that's a nice option available to you. Now, this flat setting helps with two things. One, if you are a person who is shorter in stature, you carry your hands way down low, you got long arms, carry your hands way down low, well, having the flat setting might help you get the club to sole out and be flat on the ground, as opposed to having that toe in the air. Use a flatter setting. Another thing that flattening out the club does is it makes the club more fade bias. So it helps you if you're hooking the ball a lot and you're fighting that hook, you put it on the flat setting. That can also help straighten the ball out. So very interesting. But wanted to talk about what we could do by simply adjusting the loft. And we kind of touched base on this. So if we were to go ahead and increase the loft, what actually happens to the club head, if we zoom in on this shaft, the tip of the shaft, we can see that it's not actually straight up and down. It's actually tilted at an angle. And because it's tilted at an angle, when you rotate it, it changes the orientation of the club. So, okay, now if we take this and we go ahead and increase the loft, so we go from a standard setting here and say we go up 1 or 2 spots. Well, if we increase the loft by 1.5, this 9-degree driver effectively becomes a 10.5 degree driver. And like we discussed on a previous video, when you increase the loft, it doesn't simply do this. Actually, what happens is the club turns like this. I'm totally exaggerating, but the club turns this way. So it doesn't only increase in loft, but it closes the club face. So whenever you're lofting up, you're closing the club face. What does this do? It also makes the club more draw biased. The ball wants to turn over. On the other hand, when you decrease the loft, right, and you can decrease this loft by 1.5 degrees as well, so the 9-degree driver can now become a 7.5-degree driver. And the same applies to the 10.5-degree driver, and the same applies to the 12-degree driver. You select the loft that is in or about your desired spec, and then you adjust from there. So it's really neat. It acts as a fine-tuning as well as an enhancement or a game improvement feature. But when you decrease the loft, the face actually goes like, goes like this. So it opens as well as goes down. So you're gonna want to choose the club head or the loft on the club appropriately for your needs. An example of this, say I'm a person who hits a fade. I fade the ball and I select the 9-degree driver and I say, okay, if I have a 9-degree driver, if I do anything at all, I'm gonna want this to be more lofted. I'm gonna wanna loft up. I hit a fade, that's good for me because now as I loft up, the club face closes and it counteracts my fade. Well, on the other hand, what if I like the fade and I wanna know that the left side of the course is never in play. I want to fade it all day long and never see the ball go left. Well, then I might get the 10.5-degree driver and loft down to that same loft and have the club face open. That's going to help me keep the club face open. And I'm doing all of this manipulation or adjustment simply by adjusting the loft sleeve of the club. And that's something that a lot of people don't know. So there's a lot that you can do with this sleeve. One, you can adjust the loft. Two, you can change the orientation of the club face on it. And three, you can actually flatten it out. When you flatten it out though, it works in opposite. So if you flatten it out and you loft up a degree, you are actually opening the club face because now it's on the opposite side of the shaft. And if you loft down a degree, you're actually closing the club face. So there again is something else to take into consideration if you're utilizing that factor. Okay, lots to think about. The rabbit hole goes deep. Okay, so let's just do a couple examples, maybe just one example. But what if, let's say I'm a person that is fighting a fade or a strong fade or a slice, okay? And so, okay, what I would do is I would take this club and hopefully I need to, I'm hitting a low ball, so I could use a little more loft. Well, guess what? I take this, whoops, and I go ahead and I loft it up, okay? So I take this 9-degree driver, I'm turning it into a 10.5-degree driver, and the club face is closing, okay? So that means now I'm hitting it higher, and it's gonna wanna go a little more left. Well, guess what? I can do this as well. I take this screw here, loosen on up, and then, whoops, not enough. And then we take this weight, move it over into the draw position, tighten it down, and guess what? Now the club is draw bias. So you've got this draw bias club with a closed club face lofted up to 10.5 degrees. So now all of a sudden a club that you were hitting too low and that was fading, or maybe strong fade, borderline slice, well, guess what? Maybe it's straightening out. Maybe it's a smaller fade. Maybe you're getting a little more trajectory and carrying further. You know, these things can help. It can make a big difference, okay? Okay, let's go the opposite way. I'm sure that our intelligent viewers, all two of you, can figure this out on your own. But just in case, we'll go ahead and go through the exercise, okay? So we take it and we'll put it on this. We'll just pretend you hit the ball way too high, okay? Hitting it way too high. We need to get this down on the strong minus. And that means this is a 7.5-degree driver now. Effective loft 7.5 degrees. Also means that we've opened up the club face a little bit. So I'm hitting a high hook. getting me into all kinds of trouble. Well, guess what? Now I just lowered my trajectory and I opened the club face. So now maybe I got a mid-flight draw, or at least a normal trajectory. Even if it's a little high, it's penetrating still. And I move it now into the fade bias position. So I've got fade bias, I've got it lofted down to 7.5 degrees, and I've got the face open. So now I've got a ball that's going lower and it's wanting to work a little more to the right. So if you got that hard hook, now maybe it's a soft draw. If you've got a strong draw, maybe it's straightening out. If you have a soft draw, maybe now you're learning to hit a fade. All by adjusting your golf club, by adjusting your driver. Some little tips that go a long way. For more information, if you want to talk more about it, give me a call. I'm Kevin. I can be reached at 808-254-2107 or 808-254-1745. Aloha, and I will see you at the Klipper.